Well, I want to point out something here that the story of Jesus actually has other angles to it that sometimes I think the real religious miss. And I want to put it out from an angle that law enforcement and kangaroo courts, if you think about it, um, this was a situation where, now, my personal belief on Jesus is, I lean Jewish, that, but I'm not against Jesus because I think Jesus was a great healer, a great teacher, a great rabbi, and a great prophet. But, I studied what Jews have said about who the Messiah should be, and, I go along with that. But that's not saying I do agree with, I think that every word, especially in the King James Version of the Bible, the red words, is probably the best translation going, even though I'm supposedly Roman Catholic. I'm not a fan of that anymore. But I want to point out other angles here that, and also in a very pragmatic sense, this type of situation that happened to Jesus is exactly what's even going on today. You have political appointees, such as Pontius Pilate, and I know Pontius Pilate's wife was far more for Jesus than Pontius Pilate was, and I know there was the controversy of certain rabbis that were considered Jesus to be an imposter, and I don't think they were evil in their intent, but they were going by what they thought was right. But then the followers of Jesus at the time were Jews. All the followers of Jesus at the time weren't calling themselves Christians. They were considered Jews. It's likely that Jesus was a Torah observant Jew, and so were all the apostles. And so, that's one thing Christianity kind of misses. But what I'm pointing out here is how, a kangaroo court, by, from a political appointee worried about trouble in his area, sacrifices this innocent man. And who actually carried out, the orders to do this? It was, the military or the law enforcement or whatever you want to call it. See, this is kind of my, and I don't want to knock the military or law enforcement because really one of my emphasis on what I'm saying here is that anybody who is in a position of power, no matter what the structure is or what they belong to or what the group is, it always comes down to the individual. Is the individual righteous or not? It's not because you put on a uniform or the badge or you have the title that makes you correct. If you're going to be correct and honest and righteous, it comes down to the individual. And also, many times in the case of, in politics or in law enforcement or in the military, it's the righteous people who suffer the most. And it's like you don't really know who is who. It's difficult to tell who is who because sometimes people could be good for a while and they do certain things bad. It's really a mess. But, what I get mad at sometimes is when people, you'll see this a lot in the conservative area, more quote unquote. I'm far more conservative than, I don't know what I am exactly, but, I don't like blatantly put my faith in the authorities that they're going to do the right thing. This is an example of where the authorities didn't do the right thing. And sometimes you look at history and they'll say, Rome was corrupt, Rome was decadent. Well, that only existed in the most wealthy power structures and in the major cities. And if you look at the United States today, that's pretty much the way it is also. It's not like it's in, it's throughout the whole society that's blatantly corrupt. But what you see in the media, it seems to be that way. But that's sort of like, the stories that get called, I know Suetonius was one of the authors back in the time, and he used to write about the 12 Caesars and all the dirt that was on them, whether it was true or rumors or what. But, that's usually the stuff that gets out there in public if it's unusual. If it's business, if it's a normal person, you're not going to hear anything. So sometimes things are exaggerated, what really happened, how Rome was at that time. But at the time, Rome was the most fair legal system going. But this also illustrates, that the Jewish people could be on opposite sides of issues. And obviously, this was a situation where um, Jewish people were on opposite sides of whether, to follow Jesus or condemn him. Now, at the time, it's really very difficult to say exactly what happened at that time because the writings of Jesus happened, decades after his death. I think it's an accurate story, though, by and large. But it illustrates a lot of things whereby you should not always blatantly get behind authority. Authority could be bad. But then again, the people that are in a position of authority that are righteous have it way worse than you do. So it's a difficult situation. But one thing I really get, in the case of Longinus, the centurion, he actually converted to Christianity after a while, and it was actually immediately. But and also the wife of Pontius Pilate, the stairs that Jesus walked up to, he had those stairs. She had those stairs taken to Rome. I, but what I, my main beef with some things with Christianity is this, and this is where I lean far more towards Judaism, is that I do not go along with that you have this blanket over you because you have faith in Jesus or say you believe in Jesus or you profess to believe in Jesus, that everything's going to be fine with you from here on in. I think you're going to have to, with Judaism, and more or less in a roundabout way, I'll just put it in the simple way, is that you're constantly blazing a trail whereby you're constantly tempted by Satan to do something wrong. It's not like you're saved and you're done. I know some people are vehemently disagree with me on that, but sometimes I don't like that attitude where it's like you're saved and you're done, is it stops you from taking action to fix things that are wrong. And the other thing is that the second coming of Jesus will fix everything in the world. And that causes sometimes people to sit back and say, well, there's nothing we do about it. It's way beyond us. It's bigger than us. Jesus will fix it. I don't like that. That really does aggravate me like crazy. Really, that aggravates me the most. If you're taking a righteous Jew, and honestly, I know a lot of people don't have the right opinion of Jews on the internet sometimes, but if you're looking at, true Jews that are Orthodox, they're very conservative. They're very moral people. It's the way I look at it. I don't know if hopefully YouTube will let this video fly for me saying this, but there's Jews and there's Ginos. There's Jews in a name only, and there's Ginos. I mean, there's Jews and there's Ginos. There's differences, and the thing is with a Jew will try to make the world better constantly. A true Jew, and a true Christian should be doing the same thing. But sometimes I see this, and it's not like all Christians do this. Definitely not. But a lot of times I do see this, where they fall back on the second coming of Jesus. Everything's going to be fixed. Therefore, I know the odds are insurmountable. It seems impossible. It's like you're a pebble going against a boulder. It's, I know what the feeling is, because when things are very much infested with corrupt people and the structures that are in power today, what the hell are you going to do about a lot of things? Yeah, I know, but it's like if you don't, I don't like it when people just fall back on this thing and say, well, it'll be fixed when the second coming of Jesus comes, because that's pretty much not what I see is what should be. It's like the Messiah is going to come when Israel is already a beacon of light in the world, and actually it should be that all Jews in Israel would be observing the Torah fully. Unfortunately, I don't think that happens as much as it should. And then the Messiah is going to come and be the king of Israel and lead the world. That's basically it. And real rough analogy, whatever. But I can't. When I look at Jesus's words, they're true. They're absolutely true. And when I look at, you see, this is another thing that kind of got a little pet peeve because I'm not anti-law enforcement, but then I have an oblique eye that I know there's a lot of stuff going on today that probably didn't go on as much, anywhere near as much as they did in the past. But you think about it, who carried out the orders but this corrupt magistrate of Pontius Pilate to crucify Jesus? It was basically the law enforcement of the day. And of course, Longinus completely changed during, the centurion that, crucified, was ordered to crucify Jesus, completely changed after, during the crucifixion, actually. But you look at, this story, it's like, it's a story that has a lot of application today in the everyday world, all the time. And it kind of burns me that, people that call themselves Christians, I mean, to me, it's like a word. I mean, sometimes I don't even understand, like, I'm not real super religious. I mean, I lean Jewish, but, I'm not going to be going that far into it that much. I mean, I could, in my beliefs, I lean Jewish. I'm not a liberal. I'm kind of like a freedom-loving liberal, if you call it that way, not a socialist liberal. Not a socialist liberal at all. But I believe that people individually need to do things that are right. But when you look at the story of Jesus, it's not like, I get more mad at people who kind of fall back on doing something or fixing something or straightening out their own problems or fixing something that is wrong, even though it's insurmountable, because they say, well, I'm saved. That means I'm done. God will fix it, or in the end, or Jesus will come back and fix everything. And to me, that's just kind of like, you're falling back on something that is, I don't know. It's almost like you got this imaginary thing you're putting in front of you, because I don't really think that's really what all this was about. This was not what it was all about. And sometimes, if you even look at situations where people go to war or they fight for their own freedom, and I'm not saying necessarily go to war, because a lot of times that's for the wealthy people, but people fight for their own freedom and their own independence, like in 1776 and 1861 with the South. You look at what happened, and it's like, those people just didn't fall back and say, well, oh, Jesus will fix it. They strove to, gain their independence, of course, and, create a better society, which would have been 1776 in our Bill of Rights. And if you look in 1861 at the true Confederate Constitution, on all the limits they would have put on the power of the purse, how they can use appropriations they won't be able to use appropriations to subsidize large entrenched industry in the financial elite in the North. That's really a lot what that was about. But boy, a lot of people don't realize that. But they lost, and they're still being crucified today. I don't. To me, I think the story. This is why I look at it where. Well, that's my own personal belief. I think I look at this. I look at Jesus. I look at him as a Jew, a rabbi, a Torah observant Jew. His disciples were all Torah observant. His followers were all Jewish. I mean, Christianity really came later with Paul, quote unquote, and the name he took. And I look at this it was a part of an internal Jewish controversy, basically, at the time. But you're looking at the government that was running in the area, with Pontius Pilate, with the corrupt Nero as emperor, you could see why things went so wrong. And when you have a corrupt government, basically what happens, you have corrupt law enforcement and corrupt military because they just obey orders, right? Unless they're extremely righteous. In that case, they're going to suffer more than you or me. So those are the people you really need to respect the most. But it's a case of, I don't really, that's why I celebrate Christmas, because, I think Jesus was extremely, extremely righteous. I mean, I'm not, I got to go along with what the Jewish people have said about who the true Messiah is. I mean, I'm looking at the facts. That's, I'm not trying to, go one way or the other. I'm just telling you that, um, I don't even know if Jesus was claiming he was the Messiah. I know he was sent by the Father. You can interpret a lot of what he said. Does that mean he's a prophet? He's a messenger? I mean, there's a lot of ways you can view things. It's like if you already got it set in your mind, it's this way. Well, that's how you'll look at it. I try to look at it objectively, but I really don't think you should ignore Jesus. One problem I think that when I think people, I don't think Jesus should be de-emphasized at all, or Christianity, or Christmas, or any of the principles or true tenets of Christianity. But it's almost like if you try to make somebody believe exactly what you believe, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's completely wrong. And, that's where an unnecessary controversy begins between Christians and Jews, and it's usually the Christians that are starting this because Jews aren't trying to convert nobody. They're not trying to convert anybody. I mean, I didn't find this out from somebody trying to convert me, or I definitely lean Jewish, definitely. But my vision of Jesus is he's a great healer, teacher, rabbi, a Jew, a Torah observant Jew, and he was killed by a corrupt magistrate. And I know you're going to say, it's there was other rabbis that were involved in that, of course, but those are people that were looking out for what was true. They thought, there was people that honestly thought this guy was doing bad. He was misleading people. There was nothing malicious about their intent when they, the biggest problem I think was Pontius Pilate, because he should not, there was no evidence to really condemn this guy. This guy was a political weasel. And I less so for the law enforcement that actually condemned him and crucified him, because they got to obey orders. What are they going to do? It's not obey orders, then they kill themselves. But that tells you, when people are blatantly pro-law enforcement, pro-military, it's almost as if, what are you really pro? You're pro-force? Is that what that is? Because that's really what it is, pro-force. Is that being Christian? Being pro-force? No. It's not being Christian or Jewish. Not at all. And not at all. That means you're very pro-government or something or whatever. I mean, and actually, if you think about it, I just want to leave you with this thought. We got so many stupid rules today in the United States. It's beyond ridiculous. Everybody's talking back and forth. We need, every time the solution is more taxes, more rules, and legislation for this. If you think about it, how about we just have the 10 Commandments, which, they're being barred from courthouses and all this kind of stuff. 10 Commandments, and we got the Bill of Rights. And by the way, back in 1777, the U.S. Congress authorized 10,000 Bibles to be printed and, thoroughly researched with the translation. And I know it was the Christian Bible, but still, it contained everything that the Jewish Bible had in it too. I mean, the Jewish Torah with the New Testament attached on top of the Jewish Torah, it was still all in there, and everybody read all of it. And that's where, if that's brought back, we wouldn't need 50,000 new laws a year. You know, we wouldn't need that. We could throw out all these laws. We would, if everybody was more moral, we would need way less law enforcement too. Way less kangaroo courts and magistrates. Nobody thinks of that, do they? But that's why it's an important story to keep alive. But sometimes if you keep it alive and too wrapped up too much in, I don't know, religious emotion, it turns people off. You got to look at things in a pragmatic sense. I mean, this was a corrupt kangaroo court that condemned an innocent man. I mean, yeah, he could say what he could say. You know, I mean, I know what certain rabbis were pissed off about, which they got to watch. It was their job to stop, you know, changing the direction of where way things were going. If it was an imposter doing it, and they felt he was an imposter. Not everybody felt he was an imposter, but you know, if you look at that division back then in the Jewish community is divided today on every subject there is. That's why people got to watch when you're freaking making judgments. Because look what happened when a judgment was made on an innocent Jew by Pontius Pilate. He could have been a tech lord back then. This could have been a tech lord. This Pontius Pilate could have been a tech lord. Think of him as a tech lord. You know? You cannot say this on social media. We will condemn you. Yeah, anyway. That's what happened. That's the new Pontius Pilate kangaroo court. The tech lords of social media. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this, man. I don't know where I was going with this. This is kind of an impromptu video, but I don't like rehearsing and scripting my stuff because I like talking plain and straight from the hip and just giving you a couple little angles on things that you probably didn't hear normally. And that's the whole idea behind YouTube, is to present people with something a little bit different that isn't a prepackaged corporate mainstream bunch of garbage that they think will make a lot of money. So anyway, but you know, chill out. Don't be too religious, because if you're too religious, and don't go telling people you got to believe this or you got to believe that or whatever, let them figure it out. That's usually the best way it works. You know, if you're trying to make a person believe something, they're going to say no. It's almost like dealing with a cat. I got all these cats, right? If you try to make that cat come to you, or you're trying to like, hey, come here, kitty, and you're freaking trying to grab them and stuff, what do? They run away. You almost got to like, hey, you know, here's some food, here's some information, whatever. Figure it out. If you don't like the information, you'll go somewhere else, right? That's how it is. Anyway, over and out.